Hey guys, this is Toby Mathis with Infinity Investing, and we want to talk about making money without having money in real estate. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. And so I'm going to break it into little pieces. First area is if I have nothing, if I have no money and all I have is time and energy, how do I make money in real estate? And so I'll break it down this way. In real estate, generally speaking, you have a piece of property and you have investors that want to own that property to generate income. That's our world. Sometimes it's, hey, how do I make money in real estate without having money? It's just finding people their forever home. Sometimes there's real estate agents and things like that that can make money without having any money. They just get a license and then they find houses for other people or they list other people's homes. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to be specifically focusing in on investment real estate. Real estate where owning the real estate is to create an income stream. I'm not talking about just buying a piece of land and holding it for 50 years and getting in the way of progress so I can sell it to somebody else, sell it to a builder, something like that. I'm talking about real estate that's actually income generating because that fits in with our Infinity profile. We're looking for a vehicle that's going to create an infinite stream of income. Boom, 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 boom. For years and years and years, decades and decades, we have income coming in. So how do you participate in that without having funds? Well, now you should start to realize just by me saying that is that there's people looking for these things that will generate that income and they're willing to pay you to bird dog and find those types of deals. A lot of people call that wholesaling. And what you're doing is basically going out and finding qualified properties and you're matching it with a qualified investor. So quite often in my world with my clients, you'll have an investor who has a pool of money. Sometimes they're actually doing syndications where they're pooling money of multiple investors and they're always looking for deals. And so let's say it's apartments. There may be a finder who finds and locates a great piece of property, puts it under contract, and then takes that contract and gives it to a syndication. So they're looking for a really excellent deal. They know the parameters that the investors are looking for, and then they bring that deal to the group of investors, and they'll usually get a piece of that deal. So they end up having some equity, or they're getting paid out. If they are a licensed professional, like a real estate agent, then or a broker, then they may get paid a commission. But most of the time, you're dealing with folks that don't want to go through all the steps and the legalities of getting the licensing and all the stuff that comes along with it. Really what they're doing is they're working with the investor saying, I want to bring deals and I want to participate in that deal. And sometimes they may want to even be on the management side of it. They want to help run it because there's so many different ways to make money in real estate without actually owning it. For example, you could be the property manager. You could be the one who's going out and finding the deals. You could be repairing the deals. You could be doing construction on the deals. You could be doing all sorts of things that don't involve actually owning it that can still make money in real estate. But by far and away, what our ultimate goal is to be on the equity side and being on that continuous income stream for a perpetual period of time. So going back to it, the easiest ways for you to make money in real estate is to find investors, get a list of what they're looking for, go out and find properties that match what they're looking for, either put those properties under contract, and this depends on your state, whether is the way you do this, but putting that property under contract and either, assigning the rights to that contract to somebody for payment, or sometimes you're just bringing it in and you're keeping a piece of that agreement and somebody else is funding it. And in either case, it's your energy being turned into real estate. Now, what are other ways to make money in real estate? And by the way, on all of that, you can go to Infinity Investing, and there's tutorials on how to do this and what the rules are so that you can make sure you don't step in any landmines. But it's a very lucrative area. I myself have paid wholesalers upwards of $70,000 on a single transaction because they find great deals of what I'm looking for. And they're going out, they're talking to the probates, they're driving for dollars, means they're driving around town and they're finding houses that may look a little like maybe they're not being cared for, and they're finding out what the story is on that property, and they're trying to find a way for that seller to be made whole, at the same time bringing that investment to somebody that may be looking for that particular type of investment. I bear no grudges to those folks that make a lot of money wholesaling. our organization over at Alpine, they probably wholesale 100 properties a month amongst their offices. And what they're looking for is a particular thing for their investors. And by the way, Alpine will then manage it. So they're making money without actually having to own the property as well. But they get these properties under contract and then they sell them directly, either doing a double close or they assign the contract to other funds where the income level isn't high enough for an individual investor, but may be perfect for an institution. The institutions may be looking for a 4 cap as opposed to an investor may want something closer to 8 to 10 cap. So they're just saying, here's the ones that we'll take to the individual investors, and here's the ones that we'll take to the institutions. They make great money either way. Other ways, though, you can get involved in real estate and into that perpetual income stream without having a lot of money. I'm going to say not no money, but a little bit of money. Like it could be $100, is you buy into something called a REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. And in a REIT, what it is, it's a fund that is gone public for the most part. They do have some private, but for the most part, what I'm talking about is like Federal Realty Trust, some of these publicly traded REITs. And the requirement of these REITs is that they pay out 90% of their taxable income on an annual basis. And these REITs own commercial real estate, industrial real estate, residential income producing real estate, investment grade real estate, and billions of dollars of it. And so you could actually be investing in a REIT where you're buying that income stream for a perpetual period of time. In the case of Federal Realty Trust, they've been paying out increasing dividends. In other words, the payout to the shareholders. They've been increasing that amount on an annual basis every year for over 50 years. So if they used to pay $1, the next year it's $1.10, the next year it's $1.20, and the next year it's $1. It goes up every year for over 50 years. That's another easy way for people to get involved in real estate without breaking the bank. And you don't have to worry about fixing a roof, and you don't have to deal with tenants. So when we follow the Infinity diversification formula, if you recall, it's a 30-30-30-10, 30 in income producing stocks, 30% going into real estate or real estate equivalents, which a REIT is part of that, or section 3 is managed money. It could also be living in there. You could be using REITs as part of the formula for 2 of those areas, possibly even all 3. Like a REIT fits the bill perfectly because it's an income producing stock. At the same time, it's exposing you to real estate. At the same time, it's managed by somebody else. It's actually a really great investment. You can get into those very easily. So if I was somebody brand new getting involved in real estate and I heard, oh, it takes money to make money, forget that. You can actually change your time and energy and get paid for it by just learning what investors are looking for. And it could just be in your particular area. If you're in California, it's going to be tough. You're going to be working with people that want to flip those homes. So you're going to be very, very, very specific, and you're going to have a very narrow focus. Or you might be Midwest, where there's tons of investors all over on the coast trying to get those properties, in which case they're going to ask you, what other team do you have in place? Do you have the management? Do you have these other things? But what you're doing is you're finding the deals for those that have the money to acquire them until you're in that same position, and then you can just buy your own deals. But what you might find, and what I've seen over and over and over again, is wholesalers, once you figure out the formula, once you know what to look for, and you figure out, wait a second, I probably have 100 homes in my area that I can locate that fit the bill for what these investors are looking for, you can easily build out a team or just use your own time and start just letting it rain money by finding deals for folks that are looking for them. Because I'll tell you right now, everybody's looking for deals. And they just don't have the time and wherewithal or infrastructure to go out and talk to the individual sellers, the landowners, and knock on doors, put up the bandit signs, driving for dollars. They just don't have that time and wherewithal. They just don't have it. So they're looking for people like you to go out and bring them those types of deals, and they're willing to pay you handsomely for it. And it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you a little bit of time and energy, and you got to educate yourself. But other than that, fairly simple. Loved it. Love the way that it works. And then if you immediately take those dollars and you put it into REITs and other real estate, you're going to be very, very well off over a fairly short period of time. Like it may be 10 years from now where you're looking back going, whoa, but it's amazing how much you can grow your portfolio by just using those two strategies. All right. So if you like this type of information, or if you know anybody else looking to get involved in real estate and they've bought into the lie that you have to go out there and borrow money and do all this crazy stuff to get involved in real estate, share it to them. Share it with them and show them that there's other ways and that there's other avenues for plugging themselves into that perpetual income stream. And if you could like this video and leave me some comments, that would be awesome too. We do respond to the comments and we do take your comments. And if you want to learn a different area, you can just leave what you're interested in learning about in that comment area. And that's how we get a lot of the ideas for our videos.